This is the 5-minute sample for King's Rogue by M.D. Gregory. This is my 23rd audiobook, and it was released on May 4th, 2020. This title is a short side story to the main Kings of Men series. It delves into themes of military PTSD, as well as having to do anything to help pay off a relative's medical bills. Essentially having to work to survive. On that first point, there is a large percentage of bikers alive in the United States today that used to be veterans or heavily associated with veterans, men and women alike. Biker clubs are often the biggest supporters of veterans' rights as well, and a simple Google search will bring up many different fundraisers and events that biker gangs all across the country have held in support of veterans, and facilitating their ease of transitioning back into life at home. There's a few reasons for why I think this is. First, bikers understand the camaraderie of operating within a group in a manner very similar to the military. Second, bikers fit right into the age group of veterans, so not only do they understand the lifestyle, they also comprehend the mindset. Third, driving a motorcycle freely is, to put it simply, an excellent stress reliever. What better way to come to terms with the stresses and rigors of a military tenure than to experience firsthand the freedom you fought for out on the open road? I'm sure there are more reasons, but those are the first that come to my mind. I have a lot of opinions about the military itself, especially the people who lead it, but when it comes to veterans, I really do believe that they should be taken care of mentally and financially for what they've experienced. So I salute bikers who take it upon themselves to help out their fellows. I hope you enjoy this 5-minute sample. I wasn't sure if I should have laughed or not, but I did. Tinker joined in. The door to the clubhouse slammed open, and Reaper and Undertaker stalked in holding a struggling man with a hood tied over his head. They each had one arm, and while their grips were tight, it didn't look like it took much effort to hold their captive, because his struggle was half-assed, as though he knew it was all over. He wore a black fishnet shirt, with leather pants and boots the same color as his top, which was unusual for the types of people we usually hauled in here. Most of the time, they were bikers from the other clubs around New Gothenburg, and they'd rather be dead than wear something that looked like it came straight from a closet in the courtesan. I stood and nodded at the man in their arms. "Who's that?" Reaper's face twisted in annoyance, but that wasn't anything new. He always looked pissed off, especially more recently since he broke off his relationship with our president's little brother. Reaper had balls, that's all I could say. No one else would have been stupid enough to fuck Grant Arthur, aka Little King. But then again, he'd lived, so what did I know? "A fucking traitor who sold drugs out of one of our clubs downtown without giving the kings their due," he growled. The man struggled again in their hold. "I'm not a traitor. I'm not even part of your gang. Let me go!" "Shush, little birdie." Undertaker's lips curled in a way that made a shiver run down my spine. I'd seen some crazy dudes in my life, but none quite like him. "We're not going to hurt you too badly." "That's a lie." Reaper hauled the man forward, eliciting a yell of surprise from their captive. "Keep him still while I go talk to King. I'll be back." Reaper stormed through the clubhouse toward the office. Undertaker raised his eyebrows at me when I took a step closer, curiosity urging me forward. I wanted to know who was beneath that hood, and who in their right mind would wear clothes like that. Reaper came stomping back and grabbed the guy again. "Let's take him to our playroom." Undertaker nodded, and together they led him out of the clubhouse toward the outbuilding where we tortured all of our guests. I wasn't far behind them. I was wildly curious about the man who thought it was smart to sell drugs on our turf. So I followed them through the door and down the narrow wooden stairs to what some of us like to affectionately call the playroom. King had spent some time with a few of the boys tricking the torture area out recently, putting in real walls and a good, solid floor, and I was interested to see the boys in action. I followed them into the remodeled room and glanced around with a nod of appreciation. It was a lot brighter and cleaner than before, at any rate. Someone had put in real lights. Most of the toys we had for special guests like this were hidden in secret walls and hidden compartments, in case the cops showed up for a surprise raid. Undertaker grabbed some ropes from one of the cupboards, and he and Reaper tied the captive's hands together before they secured him to a beam above them. It was low enough for Undertaker to step on a chair and reach up to double knot the rope to it, but high enough that it'd still hurt the man tied to it. The captive let out a long breath, but he didn't whimper like some of the other guys I'd seen face the same treatment. Reaper ripped the black hood off him, but his wide shoulders prevented me from seeing the man's face. "Aren't you going to plead for your life?" "Why?" the man whispered in a small, lullaby voice. He sounded too innocent to be the kind of person to sell drugs. "You're already planning on killing me. Just get it over and done." "That's true," Undertaker snorted with laughter as he swiped his burnt orange bangs out of his eyes. "But we wouldn't want to miss having fun with you, would we?" Undertaker laughed harder. "You're not my type, little bird. Too colorful." Reaper chose that moment to shift out of the way. He stormed over to the wall to the right that seemed to hide some knives and whips in a compartment behind a secret door. I took the time to focus on the tied-up man. He was beautiful, with a pale, young face, delectable lips, and darkish freckles splattered across a slim nose. His turquoise hair contrasted with the blacks and browns of the room, and it looked stark under the bright lights. I'd never seen a hair color like his on a man, but if his clothes said anything about him, he sure was fancier than anyone I'd met before. But he was also oddly familiar. "I know you from somewhere," I mumbled. The man's wide gaze shot up to me, and he wet his lips with his tongue. "He's the bartender at Sinful," Undertaker said. He stepped closer and poked the man in the gut. "He's a cutie, huh? Too bad we have to cut out those pretty brown eyes." The man swallowed deeply, but he raised his chin. He kept his mouth shut, though. Reaper walked back toward them, a long knife in his hands that reminded me a lot of the Strider I was issued before my last deployment. But this one was unique with a wood handle that had fiddly patterns carved into it. It took me a moment to recognize the weapon. It belonged to King. A link to purchase King's Rogue is in the description below. This title was a royalty share production, so I make 20% from any purchases. Thanks for listening.